Less Kevin, more tech, UTECIT.com.
Yep.
And today's show is what? Is it nothing useful? Is that what we decided it was going to be?
I think we decided it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be great.
And we're going to talk about a lot of unuseful information.
Esoteric.
For sure.
Esoteric was the
Esoteric.
word.
And full disclosure, our guest today is a hostage that
we had to get
we brought him in because he refused for a year and a half now. But he asked for a favor the other day, so we leveraged that, didn't we?
Right, yeah.
We were good that way.
Yes, you did.
And today we have Elph Morgan.
Hello.
From Zingerman's.
Nice.
Yes.
A
Zingerman's
local
IT.
legend.
A local legend, yeah. I'm not on social media, so I don't think anybody knows me, so that's good.
That's why you're legendary.
Yes.
He operates in the shadows. We told you, Bazooka, he's a little mysterious guy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, Shadow IT.
Yeah, I got it.
That's it.
So you're in IT.
I am.
You are IT for Zingerman's.
I have been IT for many years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So who would have thought IT would go into a corned beef sandwich? But
Oh, yeah. You need a lot of IT to support making food. Absolutely, unless you want it to be pretty random. Yeah. It amazes me, actually, the amount of IT that our organization at Zingerman's needs in order to just support day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is pervasive.
So help us with that.
Ah.
Okay. I mean, I'm picking up on what you're putting down.
Well, communication systems, of course.
Right.
You've got to be able to communicate with your customers.
people want to
and
place an order.
They've got to tell you what they want. Yeah. We've got to track what it is they've told us. We've got to be able to give that information to the workers who are creating things, right? So like an example is at the bakehouse. We take a lot of wholesale orders at the bakehouse and then supply restaurants and stores all around southeastern Michigan with the supplies from the bakehouse. And at around 2:30, 3 o'clock every day, all the orders are amassed for making the next shifts, whether it's going to be pastries or bread, and the PA system goes off. It goes, beep. Production managers, your orders are in, and it's heard everywhere in the building. And recently they said, we're not hearing it in all parts of the building. Can IT help us to hear this announcement we need that's deep within the system of making the food, right?
Yeah.
So we ordered some PA systems, IP-based, tie into our VoIP system, and had to test them in our own office, make sure they were good, power over Ethernet setup. And so for the last 2 weeks, every afternoon, beep, the entire building stops because it's an ear-piercing sound. And then production managers, your orders are ready. People coming in, why are we still hearing this in ZingNet? IT's working on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think everybody knows the Zingerman's brand, right? I don't think it's anybody in Ann Arbor. Their brand rating's 100%. That they
tremendous.
know Zingerman. They think of the deli. They think of the Roadhouse. They may not always think of all the other companies that Zingerman has under its umbrella. And so when you talk about the IT and supporting that, but you guys do more with just coaching and counseling and some HR and part of the Zingerman service network. So tell us about that, how that goes.
Yeah, so I'm in the IT department, which is part of our company called Zingerman Service Network. And I've been working in that role for about 23 years or so. And Zingerman Service Network is a company. It's its own company, and it serves the other Zingerman's businesses. Those are our customers. And we're made up of our HR department, which we call the Department for People, because Zingerman's can't do anything straight up. We've got to always play with it. The IT department is called the Intentional Technology Department. We also have our Marketing and Graphics department, which we now call Creative Services. And then a bunch of other stuff, like our donations for the entire organization is managed through a department at Zingerman Service Network, and accounting services and a number of other things, operations, some physical plant stuff. Yeah.
Hey, Elph, how long have you guys, has that been part of your culture to not use normal names for
Well,
departments?
we are founded by an anarchist.
Right,
So,
yeah,
yes, I think it goes back. Yeah, March 15th, 1982 is when the company started.
I find that fascinating because there's another company more well known in the world, and that's one of their hallmarks. That company is Google.
Yeah.
Right, and so they have the chief people or the fun officer.
Oh, yeah, the titles.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
yes.
so, but they're founders from Ann Arbor,
Mhm.
right? With their co-founder,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Bree. Yeah.
I wonder if one day he heard
Yeah.
about you guys, and maybe
Yeah.
that's where he got that idea.
Could be, yeah. We haven't done the titles so much. We tend to keep with the standard titles. Our HR department, holds the line. They're like, you're an IT director. That's what you are. Don't come up with some silly stuff. That's what
But it's the
Yes,
thinking
ma'am.
that's different
Yeah.
that I love.
Yeah.
It's the way you guys attack problems and look at things
yeah.
and try to resolve issues and do
Yeah.
stuff that makes it unique.
Come up with recipes, cultural recipes that people can learn and follow. Because we're a food company, we think of them as recipes. But, how we go about giving service and how you deal with a customer complaint. Those are all recipes we have as, organizational things that are taught.
Yeah, we heard Ari speaking. Was that last summer or fall? And he was talking about that, and I thought that was such a neat concept.
Yeah. It works.
Well, there's so many books that you guys have put out on leadership and, business tips 101, if you will. And
Visioning.
the visioning, right? But the training that goes on. I don't think people realize that for other businesses like us, there's a great resource there.
Yeah.
That's something other than food. It's learning the Zingerman's way, the culture.
Yeah.
And
We have a standing company called Zingerman's Training. Its purpose is to train other people in the world in how we do things. They don't go in to a client and say, we're going to teach you how to do what you need to do in your business. Instead, they say, we've learned some things. We can teach you what we've learned for ourselves. And then you take away from that anything you want. Use it, but we're not going to try to figure out your company or what you need. That's for you to do. But we can tell you what we know.
Yeah, and you teach philosophies and principles and
everything from merchandising, how to put stuff on a shelf, to how to vision for the future, managing.
At some point today, you got to do an advertisement for your newest merch.
Yeah,
that's
my shirt.
Yeah, that is really a cool shirt.
did you know they had their own font?
I did not know that.
We do, yeah. Bold, yeah. When you see the signs, a lot of them are done in a particular style.
Yeah,
of
I've seen
handwriting.
that style. Yeah.
Yeah, we actually train people in how to do that with a
Really?
marker. Yeah, we have a little cheat sheet for it, but we also made it into a typeface that's available on the computers. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll have to
Technology
remember that.
supporting the organization.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to have an art show coming up at the UMMA. That's the work of Zingerman's, one of our illustrators, Ian Nagy, who's been with us for 137 years or something like that, is going to be doing a show. I think they're showing 120 pieces of his work, and it's coming up in March.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah.
When in March? Early March?
I think it's March 6th is the opening, and then it'll be up for a little while. But
Wow. Wow. We're going to have to give away passes over at for March Madness.
That's what we could do.
We can get some promotion going. Cross-promotional.
I'll get you some information.
Yeah, I love
It's exciting, actually. I mean, we've never done anything like that.
Right, yeah.
Well, I think it's a testament just to the brand, right, and the legacy and just the neatness of everything you guys do there.
Yeah, well, and it's the people, the longevity of having an illustrator working with us for 137 years, I mean,
How old was he when he started?
Oh, he was probably in his 40s. He's pretty old now.
Yeah, right, yeah. Proven. Not old, proven.
Yeah.
So that is kind of cool, because every time I, run into somebody, that went to school here, they always talk about, or I always ask, and they, instantly know.
It is. It's hard to see that from the inside, working within Zingerman's, to understand the ripple effect that the organization has for people visiting, parents, students, people that live here. But it's definitely, people say it all the time. They know about U of M football, and they know about Zingerman's.
Yeah. We had a family, one of my son's roommates, and they lived out of state. And so one of his things, because he had graduated, they had moved to Florida, and that's one of the things he was, on his list to do.
Yeah.
Head down to the deli.
Yeah, I think that it's fun because we've had different peer groups, and you've been a conduit to help making this happen with the Roadhouse over there, and Jim and Ari. But we love bringing them in and coming over there for a lunch, or usually it's a dinner in the evening, but just for them to see, they're thinking we're just going to some restaurant, and then they're immediately hit by all these books in there about improvement and betterment and just neat stuff like that. And then to talk, and whether it's Ari, they'll come out and make a point of saying hi to our guests and talking about Zingerman's or Jim or somebody like that. It's just very unique and very exciting for our guests to do that.
Yeah.
We need to get Elph to do that.
Yeah, we're going to have Elph now. He's our go-to guy. He's PR for Zingerman's.
Oh, yeah, that's what they want, yeah.
Can you come back to a little bit at the beginning? You were talking about IT supporting the business.
Yeah.
Because we run into a lot of companies where IT is considered an expense. And then we also run into companies where there seems to be some form of disconnect between IT and the business, right? So when you had said that IT supports the business, that kind of piqued my interest.
Yeah, there are a couple of layers to that. I mean, one of the things that we teach inside our IT department over the years, we've really focused on this, is that the work of IT is not to fix the things that break. That's easy to do. The work of IT is to help the businesses be successful with their technology.
Yeah.
That's where we can have value to them, right? Fixing the broken things, you never really think about that. I mean,
but that's literally how IT is considered at most organizations.
Right. So part of that's having conversations and going in and being present in the business and listening and reflecting. And so that's a part of the work that our IT staff does. Even if they're like beginning level, they go and sit in managers' meetings in the businesses, and they'll report back to the group, here's what I heard, we'll talk about it, right? And we look for opportunities to help the businesses.
Yeah, that's incredible. What do you think are some of like your biggest impacts you've made in the 23 years?
Oh, gosh. You have to wait for my my death, and they can look back on that and tell you, I don't know. In the midst of the
Let's just
the
pick
work
a
itself.
just pick a couple of big
Well,
ones.
here let me help him out. Let me see if this, from observer from afar with you guys, just like what you just talked about there. We don't fix things that break. Our job is to keep it running. You're very great at taking the simple and keeping it simple, aren't you? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Finding just common sense solutions like that, and it's a mindset that how you attack everything.
Yeah, well, I think drilling down to purpose, what are we doing, why are we doing it, and then reflecting that constantly, I think is really important. As a leader, that's what you should be doing in your organization, is really refining, honing, getting the message down, testing it, making sure it's a good direction.
Well, I'll tell you one for me. You take a look at, let's take a look at like one of the more highbrow restaurants out there, McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
So they do billions of dollars, right? That friggin' thing that they got when you walk in the lobby to order from is horrible. You know what I'm saying? It's just confusing, and you get frustrated, you just go right to the counter. At the deli, whoever put that together, that's very, very nicely done.
Yeah, well, that's the focus difference. McDonald's is interested in having consistent product delivered to people as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And at the deli, they're interested in the customers having a great experience, right?
Yeah.
And
I love how it works. And I'm making the assumption, did your team come up with it, the screen, or did you provide, who provided the guidance for that?
The people in the organization at the deli, spending time thinking about it, talking with their peers, staff involved in thinking about it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you then put in the infrastructure.
Sure, wherever we're needed. Yeah.
It's
security, making sure there's dependable connection, those kinds of things, of course. Yeah.
But however you guys came up with that is just phenomenal. I was just struck by the difference.
I'm glad there's a difference.
There's a significant difference, and it does. It boils down to the customer service aspect of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Again, I just love the culture there, that it's intentional. It's conscious about creating stuff, and there's so many different team members, and they're all allowed to have a stake in the success of this. They got ideas. You guys let them run that thing to the ground and see if it worked. And you probably kill more ideas, or nix more ideas than you ever move forward with.
Yeah.
But you create that you create that environment where people feel safe to bring these ideas and they want to take ownership. It's very neat. And
not only bring up the idea, which, yes, what you're saying is true, like any staff person could bring up an idea, but given free rein to run the idea themselves and to check with other people and to draft out what it might look like. And what's the vision for that? How would we go about doing it? Absolutely.
Wow. You still skated my question. What was
Did
some
I?
of the biggest impacts that you think that you've made on the organization?
Yeah, that's just a hard one for me. I'm an introvert who's, happy to be, working in my small area, contributing small ways. I don't think of it in terms of big ways.
If you ask Ron Maurer would say
Yeah.
Elph takes credit for everything and responsibility for nothing.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. I'll just say this: you're an eclectic guy with esoteric beliefs, and that's probably led to a lot of the innovation over the years.
Yeah, we don't we don't shy away from taking on things.
Yeah.
We try to be open to it, and that's one of the reasons we have this small department within Zingerman's that's focused on IT. And while we don't do everything really well, we do a lot of things. And for instance, we are concerned about security, but we're not security experts, right? We want to make sure that wiring infrastructure is as good as possible, but we're not experts in that. But we have enough of it to get it rolling within this small company of Zingerman's with 6 people in an IT department to make that happen, and then to rely upon the other folks in our community to help us with infrastructure,
Not
help
that
us
small
with security.
of a company.
Yeah. In town, I guess it is. It's 800 staff. We're 10 businesses.
And significant revenues.
And that may be changing right now because somebody else is probably working on another idea to be business number 11 or 12.
There are always new ideas, sometimes from staff, mostly from internal, actually. We used to, I think, have more people coming in from the outside going, I love Zingerman's. I want to create a Zingerman's business. And that generally doesn't work too well because they don't really understand the soil. They can't plant seeds because they don't understand the soil of the Zingerman's culture.
Yeah.
It does sometimes work, but most of the time the ideas come up from inside.
And then when you say anarchy is a fundamental.
Well, Ari considers himself a lapsed anarchist.
Yes,
yes.
I did see that.
Yeah.
But I think he says it tongue in cheek.
Yeah, slightly.
We had an opportunity when we were there with one of Kevin's peer groups last year to have an employee who was the server give a pretty passionate story about working there. And I think that impressed the people there as much as anything. That, in most restaurants, if you will, that person's, just trying to get through a shift, generate their tip money and whatever. But it was an exceptional story, and the people walked away just amazed.
Was that on the pimento cheese or was that on the...
No, it was right before that. The table was full of books. After that speech, they just emptied right out. Yes. Everybody bought one. So I want a piece of that.
No, but I was trying to remember what she was talking about. Was she talking about the pimento cheese, or what was she? I remember her going off on a crusade on.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was all about, how long she's been there, why she's been there, why she'll never leave there, and how she feels like a value contributing member of the company, the organization. I mean, it was really, she covered lots of broad topics.
Well, it's not magic, really. We are still all working to get to the end of our shift, and, and if you're working in the Roadhouse as a server, you are concerned about your tips, and you have to have a really transcendent experience as an organization. We need to care for our people. We need to care for our customers. We need to demonstrate that fully and engage in it passionately. And then you have these layers that make meaning. Right?
Yeah.
People have meaning out of their lives. They're spending the vast majority of their waking time at their work, right?
Yeah.
Why strip it of all of its meaning?
I thought it was kind of cool. It was a couple of years ago. I was there in a dinner, and Ari's back in the kitchen cooking.
He's everywhere there.
Yeah, I saw him back in there, and he's right on the front line cooking, calling orders out. So
yeah, we're all doing the day-to-day stuff as well as its layers, right?
Yeah.
As well as the other stuff.
You know what, though? I'm still upset with Zingerman's Roadhouse because they had barbecued sardines one time. And I've never seen them back on the menu.
Yeah, you can ask for them.
I want to because they were smoked. They were phenomenal, man. It was one of the best things I've ever eaten.
A restaurant secret, global secret, is that there are always things you can ask for that are not on the menu. And most restaurants will prepare them if they've made them before.
Okay.
And you can do that.
I'll have to go back and get that.
Wow.
Grilled
you can
oysters.
Get it named after you.
Now, I may or may not have the secret recipe to the sweet potato fry sauce.
Oh, yeah. That's actually pretty easy. You can ask for that, too.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine you have it in some file snuck away behind 4 layers of cyber.
Security.
So nobody can hack in and get the sauce recipe.
It's probably published in one of Artie's books.
Or it could be in the books.
So Elph was saying this morning, he goes, my wife hit me this morning with, why they have you on a podcast? You're not interested. There's nothing good to talk about. And he says, oh, no, honey. I want to talk about my personal travel. I want to talk about my personal hobbies, and shares a lot of internal stuff about myself on this podcast.
Is that what I said?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the most interesting place you traveled to, and how'd you get there?
Okay, let's see. Morocco.
Okay.
Yeah, we led a food tour there. Zingerman's one of the businesses that we have amongst the 10 businesses is a food tours business.
Mm-hmm.
That business started probably 20 years ago with some of the folks at Zingerman's would go to the source of the food, meet with the people that made the food, and
Really?
think about whether they want to buy that food and bring it back. So a lot of the stuff that appears on the deli shelves or in the mail order catalog are things that come from relationships that the organization has with either distributors or, to the producers in the country.
So it's an experiential type trip.
Yes, that's the
Nice.
key word for travel the last 10 years is provide an experience.
Yeah.
We're like, we're already there.
Been doing it. Done there, done that.
But the customers wanted to come on these trips. They're called buyer's trips. Other organizations do this when they're, bringing stuff in. So they wanted to go on the buyer's trip. So the buyer's trips are gauntlets. They're like you get up in the morning and you go, taste 7 different cheeses before noon. And then, in the afternoon, you're going to taste
that sounds terrible.
But trust me, doing it like 10 days in a row, it's not for normal people.
Oh, okay.
But we could design a tour that was a little lighter and was focused on engaging the guests in these experiences and meeting these people who make this food that are so passionate about it and do it in a unique way that's, been doing it for a long time. So, that's why our food tour started from.
So Morocco. What, I just keep thinking of Bing Crosby and Bob Hope when I hear Morocco. They're on the road.
How old are you, Les?
A lot older than anyone at this table. Let me just put it that way. So Morocco, what?
Yeah, what brought us to Morocco?
Yeah.
Relationships. We have some friends in the travel world that we've collaborated with over time. Peggy Markell is a woman who's been doing travel tours for a number of years before us. We hooked up with her because she had done a trip to Florence, and Ari had gone on that trip many years ago. And so when we started doing Italy tours, we called Peggy Markell and said, Peggy, tell us about this. Are you doing stuff in the Florence area? Do you take people to learn about balsamic vinegar or the making of Parmesan cheese or prosciutto, and how does that work? And she said, no, but those are great ideas. And so we said, well, let's build a tour together. If we were to do that, what would it look like?
Yeah.
She says, well, I do cooking classes. I'm like, okay, well, let's do some cooking classes. We do visiting producers, so let's do visiting some food producers. And we built a tour up with her. And that was one of the first tours after it had been dormant for a little while that I led with the food tours. And so I managed food tours for a little while and then led tours for about 15 years. It just recently stepped back from that. We've got a number of people who are involved now, and we've got an owner of the food tours. Her name is Christy Brablick. She's doing a fantastic job of adding a lot more tours in.
He said he was tired of traveling with idiots like you.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
He's done. He's out.
Yeah.
So Morocco was one of Peggy's pet areas. She really loved going to Morocco. So we tried that out with her. We said, okay, you just take us on your Morocco trip. And it was a fantastic trip,
That's awesome.
Time spent in the mountains, time spent at the seacoast. We'd go to the fisher. People would come in with the fresh fish, and they would line them out on the tables on ice. You go pick your fish, and then they would cook them there. Picnic tables set up with the surf coming in.
Incredible.
And it's just, you can't get any better than that.
Yeah, that is absolutely awesome. So,
great experiences.
what about your, Kevin had mentioned you wanted to talk about your hobbies.
My hobbies? Let's see. I don't call them hobbies. My wife calls them distractions.
Yeah.
Tea is certainly a hobby. I like tea. One of the things that Zingerman's, I came in as an IT geek in the beginning, and in talking with Ari and Paul, the founders, they're like, well, what do you think about the food world, though? And I'm like, yeah. Okay.
There could be a future in it, not sure. But
Yeah, I don't know.
people got to eat.
So Paul still kids me about that because I eventually fell in deep into the whole food world,
Right.
and, olive oil and cheeses and fantastic breads. And, once
Yeah.
you go there, it's difficult to step back from it.
Right.
Yeah. So tea was one of the things that I discovered fairly early on that I had an interest in when I was younger, but I just switched to coffee like everybody does,
Right.
and learned how to make espresso, and sort of geeked on coffee. And then I learned more about tea at Zingerman's. We had some of the folks that provide the tea for Zingerman's, like Rishi Tea out of Wisconsin, out of Milwaukee. They source tea in China from these fantastic small estates, and do a fantastic job of teaching about it as well. So they would come in and teach the staff at the deli all the background on tea so that they could tell a good story when the customers came in. And so I sat in on those classes.
Yeah.
As we do, we have a lot of internal classes at Zingerman's. And so I started going deep into tea.
Yeah.
And once I figured out the depth of it, I just wanted to know more.
I'll tell you, I'm completely ignorant of the whole subculture around, totally ignorant of tea. And it blows me away how many people who study it. It's a hobby. They make their own blends. They buy their own, sourcing. There's a whole culture.
It's the second most popular drink in the world
Yeah.
after water.
Yeah. So it's up there.
Yeah.
So
Tea's been drunk for 5,000 years or so. It's been known as a thing that you put in water, hot water, and you make a beverage out of it.
Also
Coffee.
been drunk for 18 hours.
Yeah. That's because I took a break.
Coffee's a lot newer on the stage.
Tell us about the history of tea because it's fascinating.
Oh, do we have a couple of weeks? Great. Okay, excellent.
Summarize 5,000 years in a minute or two.
The story of the beginning of tea goes back to China, and it stays in China for about 99% of the history of tea. China writes about an emperor, Shandong, in 2700 BC, who was revered in China because he went around and tried all kinds of plants and to determine whether they were good and what they were good for.
We just legalized that here in Michigan.
I know,
but
it's fascinating. I don't think he tried that plant. But he tried tea, which he wrote about. And China has this tradition of boiling water to drink it, right? And
flavoring it
with various concoctions, including tea. The history of tea goes all the way up until the last 300 years, pretty much, or 400 years in China alone, because they kept it a secret. They didn't want to share it with anybody else. China and Japan, for the first 4,400 years, were the only ones that drank tea in the world. It's only very recently that came out. And it came out because of trade and war and battles and exploitation and the bankruptcy almost of the country of England and the starting of a drug trade to be able to equalize the coffers. That's just, in and of itself, is this fascinating story about
in the history.
The history of the British role in tea. The largest and longest-lived company that's ever been created was the East India Company, which primarily dealt in tea, that started in 1600 and lived for about 275 years before it went bankrupt. And it was one of those, it was the first example of a company that was too big to fail. So the country had to bail it out. In its end, it collapsed under its own weight of bankruptcy. Going back to, we talked about the United States a little earlier and the Revolution and the Tea Party. That was, while it was ostensibly about taxes, it was about taxes to help bail out the East India Company, which was on the verge of bankruptcy. And if you look at the flag for the East India Company, it's pretty much the flag of the United States with one section changed. And it was Benjamin Franklin who suggested we use that flag. our history is all tied into
Intertwined
this
with
stuff.
tea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the Chinese didn't need anything from the small stony island in the North Atlantic. So when they were trading tea for hundreds of years, we had to buy the tea with silver. And the Chinese didn't need anything. We're like, what about woolen garments? And they're like, no, we don't need woolen garments. Why do we make silk here? What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
We've got 5,000 years of history. You're a bunch of savages, right? So eventually, all the silver ended up going one way to China. And the British coffers are getting emptier and emptier. And so the solution was the East India Company had some opium production going on in India. And they went down and said, we've got opium to sell you. And the emperor said, no, we don't want opium. And they said, well, we're going to make you take the opium. And so they waged battle until they got a trade treaty that said opium would be part of the deal. And then it, of course, ruined Chinese culture. And the emperor said, no, we're not doing that anymore. And so they sent down a whole bunch of warships and waged war until they won. This was not Britain, mind you. This was the East India Company, which had the largest standing army in the world, was responsible for the conquering and subjugation of the entire country of India, and had free reign as a corporation. It was a chartered corporation with shareholders to do all of this. The
Still talking about Google?
Tea is a give us another 150 years. Yeah, we'll
So,
see.
Elph, you got some passion on this hobby here.
Oh, tea is fantastic. It's amazing. And, green tea and black tea, which do you like, green tea or black tea, Kevin?
I'll go with green because it sounds like the right answer.
Oh. Do you know they're from the same plant?
No.
First thing we learn in tea, which sort of blows the whole doors. It was like, wait a minute. How can green tea and black tea be the same plant? White tea is the same plant. Yellow tea, red tea, black tea. It's all Camellia sinensis.
I'm going to disappoint you because my tea knowledge is when I'm sick with a cold or a flu, I usually get some of that Lipton tea and, boil the hot water and just dump it in there and drink that with my orange juice until I feel better. So that's my
You get
tea.
some honey in there. And
Maybe a little bit.
If I told you that some of the tea in that tea bag from Lipton was from Africa, would you believe me?
I would believe anything you
You
told
believe
me.
me? That's good.
Yeah, right now we're buying anything, Elph. Is it
Kenya,
You've sold
huge
us.
tea
Really?
production. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, is that green tea, black tea that's in there, or is that a combination of both?
Plant.
Okay.
So how can it be all the same plant? It's the production method, right? So there's varietals, just like there are varietals of tomatoes or roses. So there are big-leafed tea plants. There's small-leafed tea plants, but they have different. You can roast one a little longer, leave one to air dry a bit. You can lock down the green by steaming it in the production process. It stops the oxidation of the plant, so it stays green. So it makes you a green tea.
See, Bazooka's behind our producer thing there, and he's doing a spray can. He thinks that's how you separate them, The guys out there spray painting one black, one green, huh, Bazooka?
Hopefully he's Googling me to make sure that I'm accurate in my storytelling.
Elph, in addition to tea, what other hobbies, or is that your...
Well, I have been doing consensus-style facilitation of meetings for about 30 years.
Sounds like a hobby.
It's a hobby.
It's right up there with train collecting.
It's esoteric.
It's
Did we say
esoteric.
esoteric earlier? Yeah. So there's a decision-making process called consensus. You can vote. You can have supermajorities. You can do collaborative efforts. You can do consultative decision-making. Consensus is where you have a group that works together to craft a decision that everybody can live with, right? That no one sees as dangerous to the organization or the group that's going about creating it, right? Like if you were to try to make a decision that said Zingerman's Deli is going to buy store bread off the shelf and make our sandwiches out of it, right? Somebody might step forward and go, I don't think that's a good idea because of all these different reasons, right? And that one person would be able to stop the process if they were able to say, why they were saying it was not going to be a good decision.
So do you gamify any of that?
It's humans, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Everything is gamified.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So that's one thing that I really enjoy doing is just helping a group get through a decision-making process where everybody's involved in crafting a really good decision.
That's neat.
Yeah. So
Do you write any of that down? Do you journal it?
I have taught classes in it,
Yeah.
which is a form of writing it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be a book out in the future there for you. Compete with REM. The Introvert's Guide.
Yeah, the Introvert's Guide to Helping Groups Decide on Things. Yeah, it's one of those awkward roles. We're going to get the introvert to stand in front of the room. Yeah.
And facilitate.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, man, we got him back for a second podcast. We can do it all
Oh,
on
yeah.
tea,
So
right?
we can
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Tea, and then we'll do another food trip one. Talk about the Parmesan cheese and balsamic vinegar.
Oh, yeah.
See, he'll go off on that,
Yeah. The smell of the prosciutto, or in Spain, it's jamón ibérico. The smell of the hams aged and dried, open air, sometimes for 2 years, 3 years.
Wow.
When you walk into those facilities, that smell is just so captivating, and it's so unique that you could do it in Italy, you could do it in Spain.
So they had that thing hanging there for 2 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, age is one of the key ingredients of good food. Yeah, not for all, but for a lot of food. Age and time is an important ingredient.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, are we scheduling another meeting with Elph now? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, we are going to prove his wife wrong.
Oh.
That he'll be the highest rated podcast show ever.
Let's tune in for randomness. Okay. Yeah.
We found your show. Tune in for randomness. All right, so we always close this out, and thank you for coming. But we always like to have a little bourbon here and ask people what flavor they enjoy. And do you have a favorite bourbon or?
I hate to disappoint. I don't have a favorite bourbon. I like a clean, straight-up bourbon. I tend to use bourbons for ingredients in cocktails. Four Roses is a really nice, clean, straight-up bourbon, good quality, small batch made. So I use that for making. I make a sidecar. A sidecar is a Prohibition-era cocktail made with cognac originally, but you can use a bourbon in it.
Hey, Elph, we typically get no or yes, but...
Oh. Did I mention esoteric? So you don't want my recipe for a sidecar then? Okay.
Absolutely, we do.
We're making old fashions here in a few minutes here to have
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I do
people,
like old fashions too.
You do? Do you smoke them, or do you go...
No, come on. It's a cocktail. The sidecar, I'm going to put it in here because I think it's a
Yeah,
great cocktail. It's one of my favorite cocktails. And it's tart, it's sour. It's not a sweet cocktail, but let's do 2 parts bourbon, 1 part Cointreau, which is an orange liqueur, good high proof orange liqueur, good one, and then 1 part fresh squeezed lemon juice. So 2 to 1 to 1, right? So you can have like an ounce of the bourbon and a half ounce of the Cointreau, which is high proof. So you have an ounce and a half.
So there's your
basic
sweet,
beginnings of a cocktail,
right?
And then you've got the tartness from the lemon, and then you shake it nice. Pour it into a coupe glass or something.
You don't stir it?
Nope.
Shake
Can't
it.
stir it. Gotta shake it.
Not stirred.
Not stirred. Yeah.
Okay.
And serve it straight up. It's not a sweet drink, so people who have to have sugar get a sugar rim around their glass.
You don't get sweetness
to
from
help
the
them out.
juice?
No, the Cointreau's got a little bit
Cointreau?
of sugar in it. And if you're really interested in the sweetness, you can up the Cointreau. It's a great cocktail.
Rim the glass.
Sidecar with bourbon. Yeah.
Sidecar with bourbon. Like it.
Cheers.
Cheers to the good life.